Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor, and here on this channel we talk about fiber arts, books, and a little bit of lifestyle. Another month has come and gone, and it is time for an April reading wrap-up. To be quite frank, I really don't feel like I had that good of a reading month. I read 7 books, which, you know, finishing any books or reading at all is good, but I just didn't feel super wowed by anything I read except for the first book I finished this month. Hawthorne Legacy was the first book I finished this month. I gave it 4 stars, and it is the second book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. Oh my goodness. I really liked this second book. It went so quickly. I finished it in like a day and a half. And I liked it more than the first book. I feel like the premise of this one, because we already knew the world, we knew the characters, we kind of knew what was going on. I thought it was so interesting. It was super fast paced. Like I said, I finished it super quickly. The next book I read was Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I also gave this one 4 stars. I really fell in love with this book. The backdrop of it is academia, and it has this like subplot of exploring sexism within like tenured positions in academia and problematic advisors, and how women in STEM can unfortunately like get isolated by advisors who don't have their best interests in heart. I really liked that premise of it, and I loved the 2 characters together. Our male main character just was like so loving it. I don't know what it was. Maybe I've just read too many books where it's like, I hate the whole world except for her. But like reading about a man who's like, wow, he's well respected and people like him because he's nice and he's cool and all this stuff. I don't know. I just like felt like it was so real, and and so now I'm just like, okay, I need to read the rest of Ali Hazelwood's books. So I'm working on it. And then the next 4 are all by the same author. They're all by horror manga author Junji Ito, because the reason why I got into this is so silly. I've always liked manga. I like grew up reading manga. Pokemon Adventures was like the first like manga I read. I found it at like my little elementary school library. I fell in love with it. I've always loved manga, but I definitely go through waves in how much I read it. In Wendigoon on YouTube here, really popular horror creator, and he did like a 2-hour, it was either 1 or 2 hours long deep dive into Uzumaki by Junji Ito, and I decided that I wanted to watch this video, and he was like, you have to read the book first, like I don't want to take that away from you. And I was like, okay, where is it? And my library had it. So Uzumaki is about a town in Japan that is infested with spirals. I feel like that's all I can really tell you. We follow our main character Kiri and her boyfriend. I can't remember the boyfriend's name off the top of my head, but like her boyfriend one day is just like, this town, it's infested with spirals, and she's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And so we just kind of like see how everything goes from there. It's amazing. If you've never tried manga but you like horror, and it's not the kind of horror that's going to keep you up at night, it just kind of like makes your skin crawl a little bit. It's just kind of like, oh, I didn't like that too much, you know, that sort of horror. It was just so interesting, and I gave that a 4 stars. And then I checked out a bunch of other Junji Ito from my library. So I read Fragments of Horror, which I gave 4 stars, and Tombs, 4 stars. Those are 2 short story collections by him. And the premise of these are just so interesting. And because they are short stories, like they are like so little, I don't want to like say too much, but like if you look at the covers, go find them at your local library, Barnes & Noble. I think they're well worth the read. They're super short. They took me like, I read them both in like a day and a half maybe. But then I read one of his more like novellas. It's called Black Paradox. I give this one 3 stars. The whole premise of this is these 4 people meet on a chat window, and they all agree that they're going to unalive themselves. And they're basically like stopped, and they start discovering these little balls. Oh gosh, what is it called? Like paradoxite. It's a very weird book, but in terms of like a horror level, I feel like this one had the lowest horror level. I just didn't click with me that much, but I still recommend it. Like, if you are interested in reading his works, it's still good. It just wasn't like my favorite story. And then the last book that I did finish, and then I am going to talk about the 2 books that I DNF'd this month, was actually a 1 star, and that is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. So the premise of this book is in London, there's just this society, it's a utopia, or like, it's supposed to be a utopia that is centered around sex and drugs. And this book was written in 1932. Let's like put that out there. It's written in 1932. This is like a classic. This is one of the, people talk about like the big 3 of dystopian literature. It's like Fahrenheit 451, Brave New World, and 1984. I tried reading Fahrenheit 451, DNF'd that a couple years ago. I still gotta read 1984, but I did not like Brave New World. I feel like I can tell the parallels that they are trying to pull from this. So basically, monogamy is a foreign construct. It does not exist anymore. Children are born from like test tubes. People only have sex for pleasure. And I feel like this is kind of an interesting kind of allegory to like women's liberation, which, interesting that the conversation was happening in 1932, but I mean, the liberation of women to do what they want with their bodies has always been a hot button topic for some reason. The women talk about like, oh yeah, you have to like have all these men or whatever, but the men still talk about women as if they're objects, as like passing them around. It's like, I've had this girl, have you had her? Like, you should have her sometime. Just kind of like gross. But so the men try and win these women over by doing different things, giving gifts, all this stuff. And so one guy who is like not as desirable takes a girl over to the United States and brings her to a Native American reservation. And since this was written in 1932, there are some certain like non-politically correct terms that are used, which I am not a part of the POC cultures that were like ostracized here, so like I'm not one to say that it is or isn't okay, but it called like Native Americans like savages. They did like a very gross depiction of a powwow with human sacrifice and animal sacrifice, whereas like I know that, what was it, the Mayans and the Incas did stuff like that, said to be in like the New Mexico, Arizona area, and even the Native American populations that were there didn't do that, to my knowledge. And then I asked a few friends about it, and they were like, no, I don't think so. So it's just like really disgusting. And so they bring one of these people over with them to London, and he has a very hard time acclimating to civilized society, as they call it, because they've basically gotten rid of like poetry, literature, like nothing happens for pleasure other than sex, which is like, it's weird. So it's basically a discussion on like structured society versus like emotional society. The people who are emotional, i.e. the like Native American that they brought over to this society, they think of him as simple-minded because he like has emotions. It's such an odd book, and it's an abstract concept, but I just could not get on board with the way in which it was trying to like tell the story, because people can be like, oh, well, like separate it from the art, but it's hard to do that when the opinions of how this person thinks about, like, let's just take Native Americans for example. The way that this author thought about Native Americans was clearly like very poor in nature. And I think books have been written since the publishing of Brave New World, that can achieve the same goal without having to put down other cultures. That was a lot just on Brave New World. Yeah, like I said, 1 star. I hope that like my review of it made sense. I just can't get on board. It's kind of like why I didn't like The Bell Jar. I mean, I also thought The Bell Jar was like kind of boring. The racism and homophobia specifically in that book was very shoehorned, and I feel like the racism in Brave New World was also very blatant, and that's just not something that I want to like sit here and recommend to people. And so then I did DNF 2 books in April. I DNF'd Wildfire by Hannah Grace and City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. Let's start with City of Heavenly Fire. I got over 50% through the audiobook and I still had 8 hours left, and I just looked, I was like, I cannot sit here and power through 8 more hours of this book. It was so boring. There is no reason why that book had to be that long. When it jumped different POVs in chapter, and it was like very difficult to figure out what was going on. Some people were over here and some people were over here and some people were over here, and oh, this person is no longer alive, and oh, this is happening and this is happening. It was just too much. I feel like I lost the plot. The plot gone. I mean, I'm sure I can infer what happened, but then I was looking into reading other Cassandra Clare series, and I saw how long those books were, and if I thought this one was too long, I don't think I'll make it through the other trilogies. I won't. Then Wildfire by Hannah Grace, I don't know what it was. I think it was just too insta-lovey for me. I really got bored, honestly. They didn't want to talk about their emotions, and they couldn't, what's the word? It's all this like unspoken stuff. And the main thing in it is miscommunication, and I also think I've realized I don't think I like reading about college students, especially as someone who's no longer in college. Maybe it's just because like I got stressed out so much in college. I'm just like, I can't imagine these people like doing this stuff right now because so they're working at a summer camp, and I'm like, I was doing internships in the middle of nowhere. So, I don't know, I'm not saying that I would never go back to it, but it just, like, I also wasn't a big fan of the writing style. I really liked the family dynamics that Hannah Grace was writing, so maybe if she came out with, like, a lit fic about, like, family trauma or something, because the way in which she wrote about the female main character's relationship with, like, her mother, I was just like, don't out me like that. Like, that's not cool, bro. But so I think if she did something like that, I'd probably be more into it, but in a romance sense, I just... Also, here was the number one thing. There's a side character named Stassi, and I think that's short for Anastasia, which is like I think that's the main female character in Icebreaker. Stassi? Ain't no way. Also, if you have a boyfriend, why are you calling another man Muffin? Maybe that's something from the first book, but also, you have a boyfriend. Do not call him that. And especially not when he's like hitting on other girls. Like if I was at a house party and I heard a girl, whether she had a boyfriend or not, if I heard a girl call a man I was talking to Muffin, I would no longer talk to that man. I'd be like, you're spoken for. Bye. He's a Muffin. No. No. You're not his sister, you're not his cousin, you're not his mom. No. I am not cool with that. Sorry. Don't come for me, Icebreaker stans. I am sorry. But, oh my goodness, I could not do that. That was stupid. Straight up just, that was dumb. I think I lost the plot halfway through this. Okay, anyway. So those are all the books that I read in April. I'm so excited to get back on my reading stuff. I did return all of the books that I didn't read back to the library. The ones that I could like kind of get on my Libby app, because I do need to read my physical TBR. And it's so bad. I, have been doing TBR for a little while now. I don't think I'm going to do one this month because I haven't been sticking to my TBRs very well. And if I did do one, it would be the same one that I had in March and April. So, like, I will circle back around with you for May's reading wrap up, and let's cross our fingers that Taylor actually read some books on her TBR. But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a big like. Let me know what you're reading down below and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!